While the rest of the world was scared of the Mind Flayer, the CGI director was off doing this. How was the Demogorgon created? What are the secrets of the Upside Down? And how come 11 also had to be computer generated? Wasn't Millie Bobby Brown up to the task? Hi, my name's Peter, and today we're going to reveal the secrets of the Duffer brothers' expert integration of CGI into Stranger Things. The creation of the Demogorgon. From the very first season, the Duffers intended to use as little CGI as possible, so the main monster from the Upside Down was a real guy, just in a not-so-scary suit. Actor Mark Steger used his real hands to move the huge Demogorgon arms. As you can see, they're covered in green to make them easier to remove in post-production. And this wasn't Mark Steger's first time working under such conditions. He both performed and choreographed movements for huge projects like the post-apocalyptic World War Z and I Am Legend, as well as the campy supernatural TV drama American Horror Story. Steger revealed that when the Duffer brothers were explaining the concept of the creature, they often referred to classic animatronic movie monsters, John Carpenter's The Thing, the early films of David Cronenberg, and of course, the alien from, well, Alien. But there was one more direction from the Duffer brothers which helped to differentiate the Demogorgon from its monstrous forebears. The Demogorgon should look like and convey the terror of the shark from Jaws that would appear now and then to feed. Pretty unexpected, right? Did the Demogorgon ever put you in mind of Jaws while you were watching the series? Don't be shy, tell us in the comments. The secrets of the Upside Down. While we know practically nothing about the rules of this mysterious world, we at least know how it was created using an innovative blend of digital and practical effects. This hybrid approach helped to make the atmosphere and appearance of the otherworldly Upside Down versions of real locations really convincing. Starting from Season 2, the visual effects team used digital effects to transform real settings into the Upside Down dimension. This wasn't an easy task though, as all the sets had to be scanned and reconstructed with meticulous 3D models. Meanwhile, the set of the Byers' house also served as the practical location for many scenes shot in the Upside Down.
Hola.
Which meant that it had to be built in such a way so that all the walls could be easily removed and, of course, to allow the CG teams to specially enhance any practical effects. But the creativity didn't stop there. If you've ever seen the truly terrifying Under the Skin starring Scarlett Johansson, you'll know how hard it is to create that black void effect. In that film, they used a whole stage with a special glass floor, but that would have been very expensive and very reflective, so the practical effects team of Stranger Things came up with a very creative lo-fi solution. Whenever we see 11 walking in the void of the Upside Down, the sourceless, uncanny tone of diffuse lighting was created using a big water tank. Another unique quality of the Upside Down is its peculiar and distinctive spores. And yeah, most of those were also computer generated. Director of Visual Effects Paul Graff shared with the Duffers that they were very picky about those darn spores. At first, they wanted them to be entirely practical, but most of the time, the real spores didn't work as well as they wanted. Plus, the kids weren't super excited about spending a whole day with all of these flakes just flying around and getting in their faces while they were trying to act. Also, the Duffer brothers were afraid that the actors might inhale them, which is probably a health and safety hazard, right? So, a final decision was made, and what you see on Netflix in the series are 90% CG spores, which is much harder than it sounds, as it wasn't just like throwing on a snow filter and calling it a day. These floating, dandelion seed-like flakes had to react to the characters and the surroundings of the scene, as well as be able to exist in a realistic three-dimensional space so the camera could move around and between them as naturally as possible. So the team had to rotoscope or draw around the actors and features of the background to create depth and space for the spores to play off the surroundings as if they were really there. This caused another rather annoying problem for the CG team though, as since these spores were randomly generated, they had no sense of dramatic timing. They could occasionally misbehave and do something stupid like spin really fast or drift right past someone's nose in the middle of a really emotional moment, which could create all sorts of problems for the effects team, though it is kind of fun to imagine them having a life of their own. From Baby Dart to Demodog. Of course, viewers knew from the beginning that Dart was going to be really bad news, but the challenge of the CGI team was to make the creature visually unrecognizable to the gang. That's why the first two stages of Dart's development looked nothing like the Demogorgon. And it turns out that the deadly but cute polywog named Dart ended up being a huge headache for the crew as well as for the actors. If you didn't notice, Dart has no eyes and, well, basically no face at all, and yet he still had to come across as emotional, cute, and a potential pet. I mean, Dustin is a bit of a weirdo, but the audience still had to identify with his motivations for keeping his slimy new pal. So, the CGI team had to find a way to make Dart emote using body language. Plus, the creative team fully exploited the only resource it had when it came to conveying emotion: Dart's dark, tiny, all-consuming mouth. But creating the look of the fictional creature was only half the work. Dart also needed a voice. Sound designer Craig Hennigan revealed that one of the main inspirations for Dart was appropriately none other than the Gremlins. Another thing that complicated their work was figuring out how to direct the interaction of the CG Dart with the very real cast. The kids needed to at least have an eye line to look at the object and act in its general direction consistently. And Gaten Matarazzo definitely needed something he could hold in his hands when interacting with his darling Dart. So the actors mostly had these jelly props to work with, a world away from that cute tadpole and his second stage look, which we can call the Frogagorgon. So, as Dart quickly advanced through his life cycle, the visual effects team had him look more and more like the monster we're all familiar with. Step by step, Dart's skin darkened and his tail became shorter and shorter. Then came the moment when Dart finally opened his flower-like mouth and we see just all those teeth. Ugh. That's when Dart eats Dustin's cat Muse and kinda becomes a Catagorgon, I guess. Soon after, we meet a Demodog, which, according to CGI supervisor Paul Graff, was heavily inspired by the movements of an adversary from another Spielberg classic, the Velociraptors in Jurassic Park. Just so you can see just how much CGI there was in a single scene with the Demodog, let's take a look at the Season 2 scene when Dustin meets his fully grown-up, dog-like Dart. So, here's Dustin, and the rest is CGI. In rehearsals, the crew used a simple plastic head on a stick to match Dustin's eyeline, but the most complex scene to create was the one with Sean Astin, when his character Bob gets attacked and eaten by a pack of deadly Demodogs. CGI team member Christina Graff confirmed just how ridiculously difficult this all was, saying that chewing Bob was definitely the most challenging. For the team, it was super fun and super complicated all at the same time. To convey the right impression with CGI and lend some very real weight to the scene, the team needed to have at least one real physical interaction with Bob for his final fight. And that's when Sean's experience on Lord of the Rings came in very handy. Sean used his experience as Samwise Gamgee and he had to fight Gollum. Aston revealed how back then they had to shoot the scene with Gollum like 80 times until they had every angle and everything figured out. They shot it with a stand-in, they shot it again without a stand-in, and Aston had to perfectly remember all of his moves from the previous shoot. The Duffer brothers listened to Sean's experience very carefully, heard him out about the minimum of 80 takes, took it all on board, and did everything totally differently. Instead, the Stranger Things team decided to put someone in a green screen ninja suit and have them wrestle and attack Sean for real. The Demodog was only then added in post-production, along with all the grisly effects. It turns out that Kate Treffery, who wrote Chapter 6, The Spy, was about the right size for the Demodog and happily, attacked Sean. I don't know if being the right size and shape for something as terrifying as a Demodog is a compliment though. Paul Graff shared that they knew it was going to be a little bit harder to clean this up in post and get rid of Kate and just put a dog in there, but it was well worth it. It was really cool. The Mind Flayer. We know in Season 1, the Duffers aimed for something like an 80-20 split between practical and CG effects, but this ended up being closer to 50-50. However, in Season 3, the big bad was all CGI, with no practical components involved at all in the making of the main monster. In standard Stranger Things fashion, Graff was told to model the Mind Flayer after an 80s cinematic touchstone. And this time, Carpenter's The Thing really came to the fore. That's why Season 3 has those fleshy, goopy, liquid monsters, a hybrid between a creature and an effect simulation of traveling goop, reveals Graff. And while we all saw this huge monster chase after Nancy while Jonathan tries to distract it from her, the crew members had to watch their supervisor do this. Did you notice that huge metal ball on his head? Well, that's a special VFX kazoo helmet used so that post-production teams can see all the light sources and cast the appropriate shadows, which worked perfectly for creating the Mind Flayer's monstrous silhouette. Graff loved to work with it, although he also mentioned that creating an unholy virtual life for the Duffers is fulfilling, but frantic. The time schedules and requirements are beyond crazy, and it's almost impossibly hard for everybody, especially the Duffers themselves. These guys are working 24/7, 12 months a year. They never stop, Graff revealed. These two created the most upside-down world imaginable, if you'll pardon the pun. For instance, when Will was possessed by the Mind Flayer in Season 2, the Duffer brothers came up with the idea of how to make it even more epic. They decided that tornadoes and storms would make for the best atmosphere. And while we saw the horrifying Mind Flayer getting inside poor Will, here's how it looked on set. Yeah, Will's just making faces, a propeller creates wind, and a huge green screen moves around him in circles. At least once even 11 had to be computer generated. Well, part of her anyway. What we see of 11 in early episodes of Season 2 is that she's finally starting to grow in her cute curly hair. But the problem was that the episode needed flashbacks to fill in what happened before the season began. And so viewers had to see 11's hair all shorn off again. Nobody felt like it was a good idea to cut her hair again, Paul Graff said, especially since 11's hair had to be curly for the rest of the season. And of course, Millie Bobby Brown begged the Duffers not to put her through that particular experience all over again. At first, the team experimented with a bald cap and a wig, but it added too much volume to 11's hair. The thing is, you have to hide the hair, and then you put on a base, and then a cap, and then a wig. So everybody felt it was just better to just go fully digital with the hair. We basically tracked new hair onto her head for all those scenes, Christina Graff revealed. Turns out that it was amazingly effective. Did you even notice this when watching Season 2, or was it a total surprise to you? What's the most shocking CGI scene you saw in Stranger Things? Let us know in the comments. And, as always, thanks for staying awesome.